I would like to start, before I start this talk, I'd like to thank my mentor, Kieran, and I would like to thank everyone in the geophysics group here at CU Boulder. There we go. Okay, so what is induced seismicity? What's happening in Greeley? Induced seismicity is essentially earthquakes that are caused by some kind of human activity. In the particular case of Greeley, the ones we were looking at are caused by wastewater injection. So after oil drilling practices, they bring up all this like nasty, briny wastewater. They didn't know what to do with it, so they've been injecting it back into the ground. And the goal of our study is to really understand the earthquake locations. Like, why are these earthquakes happening where they're happening? And studies have suggested that high volumes of wastewater injection cause increases in seismic activity, like we're seeing in Greeley. And so this map right here just shows our injection wells and our seismic stations. Our seismic stations are these blue triangles, and these injection wells are the red triangles. And here's just a cross-section of where these injections are happening. They're happening between lines formation and fountain formation. Okay, and we have some pore pressure models that were made by Megan Brown. So essentially when we were looking at these pore pressure models, we wanted to know, is pore pressure potentially impacting the character of these seismic waves that we're looking at? And these pore pressure models, as you can see, the pore pressure is increasing. This red area is where the highest pore pressure is because of the injections that are occurring. So the more water you put into the ground, the more pressure there's going to be around the surrounding rock area. And we wanted to see if we could potentially verify this model with seismology. Okay, so what I did for this research was I ran earthquake events from January to June of this year into a subspace detector. And what this subspace detector essentially gave me was events that were very similar in waveform to the original earthquake that I ran. So basically, after I had the template and the detection events, I mapped them, as you can see. These are separated in 5-day increments. So as the color changes, that's just a change that's occurring over time. And what we did was we put these events into event pairs. And an event pair is basically just how close locations were spatially, but how far apart in time they were. So this is an example of a really good event pair that we would use, because as you can see, they're really close. They're basically right on top of each other, but they are several months apart in time. And so in order to analyze this data, we made seismograms and amplitude spectra plots and looked at them. Okay, here are the events that I used for this talk. So the template event that I originally ran through the detector is going to be the red event, which is from March 3rd. And the detection event is from May 8th. And as you can see, they're pretty close, but they're about 2 months apart in time. Okay, so here is a seismogram. As you can see, it's just these two earthquakes that are like aligned on top of each other, basically. Over here, you have your velocity in nanometers per second, and you have your time in seconds. So what's interesting about these earthquakes is that they're pretty similar in their waveform. They have the same polarities, which just means that they both go up first, as you can see. Oh, let me explain this. This up here is the P wave arrival, and these two are S wave arrivals. So we wanted to know, are these events from the same fault? And with how similar they look, we can kind of assume that they have very similar physics at their source origin. So we're thinking these came from the same fault. But interestingly enough, there's a difference in the arrival at the P wave. The S waves line up extremely well, but the P wave seems to have changed possibly. And so we can kind of potentially see two things happening here. Either these earthquake events were located at a different location along the same fault, or the velocity structure of these earthquakes could potentially have changed. And that's kind of what we were looking to see if we could find. We wanted to see if propagation velocity was changing, and that's just the speed of the wave. And we can't say for certain yet, because the location variable definitely needs to be eliminated before we say that. But that is very interesting to look at. And here are our amplitude spectra plots. So over here you have the amplitude, and down here you have the frequency. And so, like, as you can see, the peak amplitudes of the template event generally tend to be higher. And so we're wondering, is frequency content potentially being impacted by pore pressure? You can see, though, that the pattern isn't necessarily followed everywhere on all these stations. So it's really hard to make conclusions about this particular data set, because we definitely know that frequency content, which is just the number of cycles per second of an earthquake, it's kind of hard to say, because we know that's impacted by how far away a seismic station is from the origin of the earthquake. Because as you get farther away from the earthquake, it shifts to lower amplitudes and lower frequencies. So we know for certain that's impacted. In order to really analyze this, we definitely need to eliminate the location variable. So the most substantial part of my work was that I added several events to our catalog. It was about 20, I believe. We only have a limited number of event pairs that were adequate for analysis as of right now. But the fact that we're able to find as many event pairs as we did in this short time is still pretty significant. And we don't have a pore pressure model to compare the data that I ran for 2017. So in the future, we definitely would like improved earthquake locations. We can employ this double difference location algorithm to help us solidify our locations a little bit better. We need to expand the time frame of the pore pressure model so we can compare the 27 data to it. And also, we're kind of curious about this geomagnetic data because we think it's interesting that these earthquakes tend to be occurring in a gradient between some magnetic highs and, like, right here, and like a little kind of magnetic low. That is something that we could potentially look at in the future. And I would like to thank the RECCS program and everybody. Thank you.